You weren't too sensitive. They just didn't want to deal with your feelings. The timeless accusation hurled at anyone with the audacity to experience emotions in real time. We've heard it before. You're overreacting. You take things too personally. You ought to toughen up. These are the classic refrains of those who would rather invalidate your emotions than confront their own behavior. How convenient. But those of us raised under the noble doctrine of emotions are an inconvenience, being sensitive was never seen as an insight, but rather a dreadful affliction. One that required immediate suppression, lest it disturb the fragile egos of those around us. I'm Dylan Moore, author, cognitive behavior specialist, and dedicated advocate for emotional healing on a global scale. Your trusted guide through the absurd social expectations that keep people in a labyrinth of self-imposed chaos. Now let's challenge the unchallenged and launch a delightful rebellion against the emotional nonsense and absurdities we've been conditioned to tolerate for far too long. In today's discourse, let's dismantle the limiting beliefs and expose the attempts of small-minded individuals who insist on gaslighting others into self-doubt and call out the ludicrous psychological gymnastics that keep people trapped in niceties at their own expense. Because here's the truth. Your emotions were never the issue. Their refusal to deal with them was. Now, why were you labeled too sensitive? If you grew up feeling like your emotions were a bit much, please consider the following. Your feelings made others uncomfortable. Rather than managing their own reactions, they dismissed yours. Oh, convenient. You grew up in an environment where emotional suppression was the norm. Sensitivity wasn't nurtured, it was shamed. Your reactions challenged someone else's behavior. Instead of taking accountability, they made you the problem. It's a classic maneuver. You learned that being easygoing earned you more approval, so you swallowed your feelings, you smiled and kept the peace, at your own expense, of course. You were expected to tolerate emotional neglect, even abuse. Sensitivity was framed as a liability in an environment that required survival. Now, here's the truth. Your emotions were never the issue. Their refusal to deal with them was. Now, there's a hidden cost of being labeled too sensitive. Have you been taught to second-guess your emotions? Well, who benefits from you not trusting yourself? Were you made to feel guilty for actually having needs? If expressing your emotions led to rejection, who got to avoid accountability? Did someone project their emotional limitations onto you? If they were uncomfortable with feelings, did they label you as the problem? Are you more concerned about how others feel than about how you feel? If so, who's really benefiting from you always prioritizing their comfort? Because here's the thing. If you were taught that sensitivity is a flaw, someone else benefited from your silence. Now, how to reclaim your emotional depth as a strength. Let's reframe sensitivity as insight. Don't overthink. You perceive deeply. That's an advantage. Set boundaries around your emotional invalidation. If someone dismisses your feelings, correct them immediately and kindly. I'm not overreacting. I'm expressing. Trust your emotions as information. Sensitivity means you notice patterns others miss. It's a gift, not a burden. Surround yourself with people who appreciate your depth. The right people won't tell you to toughen up. They'll honor your truth and celebrate your awareness. And now, a most scandalous realization. For those of you who have spent a lifetime shrinking themselves to accommodate others, well, you were never actually too much. You were simply too perceptive, too intuitive, and too unwilling to ignore what was right in front of you. The world has long revered poets, philosophers, visionaries for their emotional depth. Yet, when it comes to day-to-day existence, we're somehow expected to stuff it all down, lest it inconvenience someone with the self-awareness of a potted plant. But we're not here to make ourselves smaller. We're not here to be palatable. We're here to feel, to express, and to thrive. So tell me, who convinced you that your emotions were too much? And more importantly, who stands to lose if you reclaim them? drop a like or a comment below. And let's normalize emotional intelligence as a superpower that it truly is. Together we rise, and together we thrive. Let's rise fierce into a new life of personal power and freedom.